We got woken up by scary noises in the woods. True story, any names included are changed. My family are avid campers and have been my entire life. It started when my grandma moved to California, where this story takes place when she was a little girl. When I say my entire life, I mean it. There's pictures of me and my siblings as babies sitting around the campfire. A little more background: my family also have hunted and whatnot. So when we're camping, we bring an array of guns that we shoot, and occasionally swimming or fishing stuff depending on the weather. To give a general gist of our campsite without giving away too many details, there is a small meadow that you have to go through off the main road, then up a small hill into the actual camping area. There's also a smaller creek down the embankment that we play in sometimes. I don't want to say where it's at other than California because A, I'd like to stay anonymous, and B, even though we don't own the property, it's very special to my family and we will bite anyone who disrespects it. Anyways, we tend to camp and only use our vehicles for transportation there and home, or for the occasional grocery run. The nearest town is a handful of miles away and our actual site is very secluded in the middle of nowhere with thick trees all around us. Keep this in mind. There have been a very small amount of times where we ran into other human beings in the area, and I mean very few, and it's usually been a ranger who saw the smoke from our fire and stopped by to see if we had a permit. A secluded part of the mountains, surrounded by trees, no one around. Sounds like a cozy vacation, right? For the most part it is, but there's always that fear of someone or something lurking in the dark when we're making s'mores or sleeping in our tents. Even though pretty much everyone in my family carries a weapon on them, the idea of there being nothing but thin fabric between you and a predator of sorts will always run through your mind, especially the first few nights when you're getting used to everything. Sound really travels up there, and every year we can hear people shooting off their guns a couple of miles away, and we'll respond by shooting off a few rounds just to let them know that we are there too. So, we occasionally get the typical crack of a stick or a woodpecker, but bigger animals are pretty scarce in the area. Not saying that they aren't there, cause they absolutely are, but I've only ever seen deer around, no bears or mountain lions, that I've seen. My dad, siblings and I share a tent, and then my grandparents share a tent that is only a short distance from where we place ours, so that we can all talk and communicate with one another should something happen. One night a few years ago, it was our typical camping group minus a few of them, and we all had our tents set up in the usual spots. It had to have been around 2 in the morning or possibly a little earlier when I am woken up by the most blood-curdling scream I've ever heard in my life, and I can't help but freeze in my sleeping bag. Not a single muscle in my body would move. I couldn't even blink. "Stephen," I hear my grandma call out, strangely calm. My dad responds in the same tone to let her know that he'd heard it too. Then it happened again. What sounded like a woman screaming bloody murder in the distance. I say in the distance, but it was far too close for comfort. If you keep driving straight down the main road past the entrance to our camp, there is another dirt road that leads to a small clearing that we visited frequently. It was close enough to walk through or ride our bikes through. The screaming was coming from what we think was around that clearing. "What the fuck is it?" my dad asks groggily, turning on his side to unzip the tent window to see if maybe he could get a glimpse of anything. Just as he did this, there was another sound. It sounded similar to a dog getting hurt, like when you accidentally step on your dog's paw and they make that higher pitched yipping sound because they're in pain. It sounded like that. The noises lasted what felt like an eternity as I laid there in pure fear that a woman was being brutally murdered a walking distance away from my tent. And what felt like an eternity was no more than 5 to 10 minutes, maybe even less. It stopped as quickly as it started and the silence was deafening. I don't remember much more as the adrenaline was coursing through my body, but somehow, I fell back asleep and woke up the next morning almost thinking it was a dream, until I joined everyone around the campfire and they were all talking about it. None of us ever went to check out what it was, but we only assumed that it was a mountain lion attacking a coyote or other smaller animal, since where we were was so secluded. Mountain lions scream, and from a distance, it can sound like a woman screaming at the top of her lungs. If you've never heard a mountain lion scream, I'll link a video that I found that sounds closest to what we heard. If you listen to it or have heard the sound in person before, just imagine being woken up in the middle of the night to those horrific screams. Being in such a groggy state, Your mind takes a few minutes to process what's happening before the gravity of the situation settles in. The adrenaline kicks in and you cannot move, think straight, or even breathe. It was one of the coolest yet craziest experiences of my life.